What has the Volkswagen Transporter got to do with Yorkshire? The birthplace of our iconic vehicle has roots there, but why? And did you know that Volkswagen was once operated by the British? We're going to discuss all that later. If you didn't know, it's a really interesting story. There are so many interesting facts that you may not be aware of, like the first fully built electric transporter was built over 50 years ago, arguably with a better design than some of the ones which are used today. The UK celebrates 70 years of the Transporter. It's its platinum anniversary. The new VW Transporter is coming soon, and we now know when and where it will be having its official launch event. Before we come on to all that, let's take a trip back in time where it all started and look at some of the impressive numbers of these incredible vans. Guess how many Volkswagen Transporters have been sold over the years? Let me know in the comments how many you think they've been built, and also tell me which is your favourite model. Personally, I've actually got to pick two, and I'll explain why we go along why. Anyway, we all know the T1 was the first Transporter, which was actually the Type 2, and that is the first part which can actually confuse people. The Type 1 was the Beetle, and the Type 2, the Transporter. The T number only started being used in the T4 era, and then this was used retrospectively for the previous models, the latest being the T6.1, for now anyway. Anyone can be forgiven entering this world of transporters for mixing them all up. I know the T26 to the T32 can also confuse people, but we're not going to be talking about that today. The T1, the original transporter, the splitty, was built originally in Wolfsburg, and it came into full production in 1950 as a panel van. And those who remembered that I've just said 70 years, you'll actually know that it's 74 years since 1950. But the first in the UK was 1954 when it launched at the Commercial Motor Show at Earl's Court in London, which is 70 years ago. This used the same engine and gearbox as the Beetle, with this being placed in the rear. Over a period of time, there were several variants, including the Kombi, an 8-seat bus, a pickup, and my favourite, the Samba. This vehicle, like many of yours, I'm pretty sure, is one of my favourites. And this specific vehicle I've spent a lot of time with, and I absolutely love it. It is such an iconic vehicle with the looks, the sounds. Wherever you go, you will get people smiling at you, looking and pointing at the vehicle. This one is the 23 window. It's got lots of glass, opening front windows, and it looks really, really cool, in my opinion. And one day I would absolutely love to own one myself. Production moved from Wolfsburg to Hanover, but with this increasing demand, they also had to have production facilities elsewhere as well. Around 1.9 million purchases were made of this model from its first production in 1950 to the last in 1967. And in 1967, that's when the new model was released, the T2 as it's known today, easily recognisable from its new front end. Gone was the split screen, and now featured what became known as the bay window. And there was also now a sliding door as standard, and the pop-top roof was an option, which was very, very popular. And again, the vehicle itself was popular due to the improvements that were made, its more powerful engines, the improved load space and increased payload. And talking engines, in 1972, Volkswagen produced an electric transporter. That's over 50 years ago, a fully electric vehicle. It was pretty heavy, coming in at 2.2 tonnes, and the battery alone was 880 kilograms, which only had a kilowatt hour of 21.1 and a range of 53 miles. We've certainly come a long way since then. But back then, it had a really good option for replacing the depleted battery, which essentially you took somewhere and they removed the depleted battery and replaced it with a fully charged battery. Now that's much better than having the long times which you have now. Now there's several reasons why this wouldn't be possible, because creating a universal system for a battery exchange certainly wouldn't be an easy task, with all the vehicles being completely different sizes, different models using different batteries. It probably wouldn't be possible today. But back to the T2. Now, although primarily originally manufactured in Hanover, where 2.14 million units were produced, there was also production in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And this has a record, I believe, do please correct me if I'm wrong, but it holds the longest continually produced model. So that's the T2 variant rather than the actual Transport itself. But the T2 variant, that model, it was actually produced in Brazil until 2013. That's decades of production for a single type of vehicle. And the reason why they could do that is the regulations over there are just not as strict as other areas. For us in Europe, the regulations meant that modernisation was required, and that's what happened. The T2 finished production in Europe, in Hanover, in 1979, and that's when the T3 started to roll off the production line. Getting bigger, especially wider, more space for passengers and luggage which they can carry as well as being much safer. A new range of engines were also introduced, including diesels. And this changed further in 1985 as turbocharged engines became available. They were fitted with catalytic converters, and now you can also get the all-wheel drive option as well. Again, these sold really well, 1.3 million units being sold from Hanover. But the big news story from this area was in 1988 when the very first California was introduced. The Campervan model that was very popular back then and still is now. We saw recently the new one 36 years later being built from the multivan platform, a new design with twin sliding doors. I will link to that video at the end. And if you're interested in campervans and the outdoor lifestyle, then please do subscribe to the channel. I've got loads of videos and got loads more coming up as well. The next in the evolution was the T4, and now we're getting into a model range which is still daily driven today. People are still daily driving them. There's loads of them around. They were really, really popular back then, and they still are today. The first was made in 1990. Now, that doesn't sound an awful long time ago, but it's 34 years ago. The T4 saw the engine being moved from the rear of the vehicle to the front for the very first time, along with being front-wheel drive. The van was totally redesigned. It had a wider choice of engines, new suspension, and it also came in 2 different wheelbases. This model had a 13-year lifespan with a midlife refresh in 1996, and it's in that time it sold 1.9 million models with its growing range of body types, panel vans, Kombis, pickups, Caravelle, and obviously the California. Like I've said, these are still daily driven today. They are really, really popular, and I don't recall seeing other brands of vehicles which are as popular from this kind of era still being driven quite regularly on the roads today. The T4 probably stands out in that regard, although I should probably make a conscious effort to see and maybe note them down, see how many older generations of other branded vehicles I see as well. But I don't think there'll be that many, and that'll only prove my other points on why choosing a VW is a good choice to make. In 2003, VW moved onto the T5, and this was a massive leap forward in technology. Again, continuing the theme of what we've seen in the previous models, the increase in size, importantly, more luggage and comfort for the passenger, an even wider range of petrol and diesel engines, including a very, very rare model which a lot of people didn't know existed. Did you know that there was a 3.2 litre V6 petrol variant that was brought out in the Caravelle? And looking on Auto Trader, there's actually one for sale today. They don't come around very often. There is only one, mind you, not that many were produced. The T5 though was and is still extremely popular. There's numerous examples of these seen daily, far more than the T4. Many have been modified and personalised to the owner's tastes, all having different opinions of what we like. People certainly let their imaginations create some extremely unique designs. They might not be for me, but it's all personal preference, isn't it? We all have these different choices. And of the T5, there were 1.65 million produced before the cycle ended in 2015. And that's when we saw the T6 for the first time. Again, another huge improvement in technology. And technology really probably is the main differentiator between the T5 and the T6. Technology in the form of driver aids, infotainment systems, and the much improved dash. Engines also changed, and they had to, again due to the regulation. We saw AdBlue introduced to make the engines cleaner. And the midlife refresh came in 2019, but we didn't actually see these being delivered into 2020, and that again was a little bit later because of that dreaded and I've talked about the differences before. A fresh look internally and externally. A digital dashboard was now available in the California and the Caravelle models, but that's nothing compared to the modern technology features which we're going to be seeing in the new California. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the new California when it arrives later this year. But we know that's the multivan, not the transporter. Personally, I really like it though, and what I've seen about this vehicle, I can't wait for it to be here in the UK. The order book for that is going to be opening at the end of summer. But what is next for the Transporter? It's 70 years old in the UK, and a new, totally new model manufactured outside Germany for the first time is on its way. Solely out of Germany, that is. Obviously, I've mentioned that other places did produce them. And we know that it's being built in Turkey as part of the Ford-Volkswagen alliance. A totally new era for this historic vehicle, and we're going to be seeing the official unveiling in Germany in September at the IAA, the International Motor Show. It will then be coming on sale and be available early 2025. What do you think about this new model? I know it's certainly divided opinion. Do also let me know in the comments. And the question which I asked earlier, how many Transporters do you think have been sold up to now? If you've been doing the maths, you might have a good idea. Over 13 million. That's certainly a lot of hands you could be waving at. Although I wonder how many are still around today. I'm guessing it's not something which could be calculated very easily because they're all scattered around the world. So anyway, I said at the beginning of this video that the Transporter has roots traced back to Yorkshire. But how is that? Well, this is actually a really, really interesting story, and I won't explain it all in detail today. However, I will give you the brief outline, the very brief outline. So, Major Ivan Hirst, who was a British captain of the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, was responsible for the revival of VW after the Second World War. And he was born in Saddleworth in Yorkshire. And at the end of the Second World War, Major Ivan Hirst was sent to the Wolfsburg factory. In 1945, the British military government assumed trusteeship and began its 4-year control of Volkswagen. So as Major Ivan Hirst went over to Wolfsburg and visited this factory, it was in better shape than he had originally thought, although it had suffered significant damage from the air raids, as had the rest of Germany. There was damage to vital infrastructure, which did need repair. So they needed transport, hence 20,000 vehicle order was made. And with that order, a further 20,000 vehicles was also ordered not very long afterwards. And these vehicles were ordered by the British Army for the Volkswagen Beetle. But how does that link with a Transporter? Well, these factories were huge. They didn't have the conveyor belts back then. So they used battery-powered runabouts to move the parts around the buildings. And it was these batteries which were reaching the end of their lifespan, and new ones weren't available because of the war. So rather than halting production, they made their own. So based from a Beetle chassis, the seat was placed at the rear with a carrying platform at the front, and that was going to be used to transport these goods around, and that was named the Plattenwagen. A little bit later, Dutch Volkswagen importer Ben Pon saw this and thought that it could be used for wider purposes, and he sketched out his idea in a notepad. The Type 2 or Transporter was born, and production began. Its early uses included not only a van for carrying goods, it was used by police, the fire department, postal delivery. It really was a multi-purpose vehicle right from the very start. As I've talked about before, it's the Swiss Army knife of vans, the Transporter. I firmly believe this van, with its history, is completely unmatched. And if I could, I would have that 23 bay window Samba and a T6.1 as a daily driver. Although I am really, really keen to see this new Transporter. Is it the T7? But to be honest with you, I'm probably even more excited to see the new California. This really is going to be a huge year of change for Volkswagen. Have a look at some of the different models here which are going to be released this year. Thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you soon.